Ginkgo, cottonwood, pin oak, sweet gum, tulip tree. Our emotions resemble leaves, and alive to their shapes, we are nourished. Have you felt the expanse and contours of grief along the edges of a big Norway apple? Have you winced at the orange flare, searing the curves of a curling dogwood? I have seen from the air logged islands, each with a network of branching gravel roads, and felt a moment of pure anger, aspen gold. I have seen sandhill cranes moving in an open field, a single white whooping crane in the flock, and I have traveled along the contours of leaves that have no name. Here, where the air is wet and the light is cool, I feel what others are thinking and do not speak. I know pleasure in the veins of a sugar maple. I am living at the edge of a new leaf. Let's take our usual comfortable seat. Feet flat on the floor and straightening the back against your chair if you're sitting in a chair. Maybe leaving your hands up in that receptivity pose. Closing the eyes. And just feeling everything swoon to a softening. Your face, the muscles of the jaw, feeling that awareness rising to that space between your eyebrows, right at the center of your forehead. As if landing here. And that swoon of presence and softening just lowering itself down your body, down the back of the neck, which you could straighten maybe by a millimeter, and the shoulders, which you might pull back just slightly if it's comfortable. And the back you could straighten just slightly so that everything seems to be hanging on a rod between the heart and the head. And just making space for that easy sweep of breath from the belly up through the heart, rising to a peak and pausing, and then falling again. Four counts in, a little pause at the top, and 5 counts out. And as you're doing that, just softening the belly, feeling the heart opening, the drawbridge coming down, like I like to say. And just as an experiment for the next half an hour, to allow and be open to whatever you're feeling and whatever comes. This can be the scary thing. It can push you out of your comfort zone to just allow whatever to come up, to come up. But in this space, it's an enclosed space of a half an hour, and everything is allowed. As you sit and you feel your body beginning to settle in to the practice and the ceiling widen and the walls widen, you might just step back and watch what you're feeling. It begins with an emotion, a feeling of uneasiness or worry or frustration. I don't know why, but yesterday I had a memory from when I was in second grade, when I was placed in a special part of the room because my teacher couldn't control my behavior. And she put me in this space in the room that was apart from everybody else. And it just came back in my practice. And it was there and it was allowed to be there. So we step back and we just watch the emotion pass by like a cloud. And then whatever thoughts come, we step back and we watch those thoughts pass by. Not clinging to them or trying to understand them or trying to control them or harness them, but to just watch them pass by. And like Ram Dass says, to just sort of look at them and say, far out. You experience what in Buddhism, the term is kshanti. Thich Nhat Hanh calls it inclusion. It's okay for all of it to be here. It also is known as forbearance and infinite patience with what comes. Forbearance with our emotions, forbearance for our thoughts, inclusion of all the parts of ourselves, and to say, it's okay that it's here. That's the shapes of leaves. Ginkgo, cottonwood, pin oak, sweet gum, tulip tree. Our emotions resemble leaves, and alive to their shapes, we are nourished. Have you felt the expanse and contours of grief along the edges of a big Norway apple? Have you winced at the orange flare, searing the curves of a curling dogwood? I have seen from the air logged islands, each with a network of branching gravel roads, and felt a moment of pure anger, aspen gold. I have seen sandhill cranes moving in an open field, a single white whooping crane in the flock, and I have traveled along the contours of leaves that have no name. Here, where the air is wet and the light is cool, I feel what others are thinking and do not speak. I know pleasure in the veins of a sugar maple. I am living at the edge of a new leaf. So as I said, Arthur Sze is the new Poet Laureate of the United States. I think he's a wonderful choice. He's a poet who has taught and written about the American West for decades and decades. He's a poet of pleasure and grief, but like the notion of kshanti, pleasure is not to be praised in his poems and grief to be lamented. Rather, he sets them side by side. They're a forest of intermingled experiences, and everything belongs. Like in this poem, there's nourishment in the ways that we can see our emotions reflected back to us in the shapes of leaves and in the things of the forest, and even in a logged island that brings up anger and loss. Everything contradictory belongs and isn't instead compartmentalized into this kind of poem, and now this kind of poem, and this kind of poem. That's what I love about his poems, because they are messy in that sense, the way that life is messy, the way that Rome is messy. I chose this poem because, in part, Arthur Sze is now the Poet Laureate of the United States, but it also reminds me of Rome. And I want to talk a little bit about my Roman experiences week by week, because they're kind of blowing my mind. Think about Rome as a city of contradictions, a city that's messy in the way that this world that Arthur Sze describes is really messy. On one side of the Tiber, you have the Vatican with its dome, which, at least in theory, is dedicated to a desire for God and transcendence. And on the other side of the Tiber, you have the Colosseum, which actually literally has an underground dome that was supposed to collect the rivers of blood. And the way that the Colosseum is, in tribute to the desires of humans. St. Augustine called it the city of God and the city of man. And when the empire fell, he said the city of man is fallen and the city of God goes on. These contradictions are everywhere you look in this place. And really, it's a kind of poet's dream to be here, because you can't get away from it. I went to the Santa Maria del Popolo last week, and I saw the amazing alcove where on one side, and I'm sharing it right now, you have the Caravaggio called The Crucifixion of St. Peter, where St. Peter is being crucified upside down because he requested to do this. He wasn't worthy to be crucified right side up, like Jesus, having betrayed him in the story. So his crucifixion is upside down, and you see that this diagonal line is tipping downward, even as these figures that are crucifying him are pulling him upward. So there's this pulling up while he's being dragged down. And just across the alcove from St. Peter is Saul turning into Paul in Caravaggio's conversion on the way to Damascus. Both of these, by the way, completed in the year that Shakespeare completed Hamlet. What a year for art. But in this one, you see that there's a diagonal line too, with that horse bending downward while Saul/Paul is rising upward with his arms out. It's as if he's riding some invisible horse up, straight up to the ceiling. So this is an incredible experience, not just for each piece alone, but for the two pieces together, the way that the two pieces come together. And going back to Arthur She's poem, you see this happening here all throughout. And there are, in fact, just a few operant words that hold the whole thing into place. One is nourished. What he's saying in the poem is that our emotions are mirrored back to us in these things in nature. And by seeing them as natural, there's something sustaining about that and nourishing. And then he goes into it. Have you seen this? Have you seen that? And have you even seen the islands whose forests are decimated and felt anger? Even having that reflected back to you, made real and concrete, is a kind of nourishment. The other operant word is here in the second to last stanza. Here where the air is wet and the light is cool, I feel what others are thinking and do not speak. That line could mean two things. One is that I can feel through compassion what others are experiencing by this encounter with nature. And the other is, I feel what others are speaking and I fail to speak, and I fail to share my side of it. So he's got this new leaf that happens. That's the third thing at the end of the poem. I kind of feel like the new leaf at the end of the poem is this willingness to accept all of it and to speak those emotions when they arise, and by speaking them, release them. So let's go back into the meditation, and I want to do what I call the ABCD meditation to bring us in that space of allowing whatever emotions you're feeling. Last week it was fear. It might be any number of things, given the world that we live in. Or you might be in a moment that's really kind of lovely and feeling guilty about where you are in your life right now. That pleasure you're feeling is also part of the kshanti experience. It's also welcomed in. So let's look at all of it. Going back into that space, letting the shoulders fall first, softening the back of the neck, letting down the drawbridge. In the story of the temptation of the Buddha, one of the temptations is fear. He sees these warriors coming at him. And when he recognizes fear and lets it go, the arrows of the warriors turn into flowers. And that is actually what's happening in this poem. The arrows of our self-judgment and reprisal are turning into flowers left and right in the shapes of leaves. So the first part of this ABCD meditation is A, as it is. What's here? What is the emotion that you're feeling? Is it a joyful morning? Just invite that joy in to sit down and have tea. Yesterday, the memory from second grade came up because I was frustrated about something having to do with banking. And then I felt guilty that in such a world where I enjoy so much privilege, I was frustrated about finances. But the idea is to, okay, welcome in, sit down and have tea. The B of the meditation is be here with it. That's where the kshanti happens. You make room for this. You widen your inner space from a box to a cathedral. Becomes part of something so grand. You begin to see it in perspective. You're here. There are a lot of things that are okay. In the B of the ABCD meditation, this is some of you, but not the sum of you, I like to say. C is change is inevitable. This life is impermanent. Joy will turn into something else, so enjoy it. Sorrow will turn into something else. Let it go. Maybe with change happens, feeling the smile that starts in the heart and just finds its way into every cell of your body, smiling from the heart. Change happens. And D is don't judge it. That's the toughie. We judge our anger, but he's seeing it as aspen bursting into gold. The nourishment of our emotions when seen as completely natural. And here's what Arthur Sze says. Poetry is the essential language that endlessly branching enables us to live deeply and envision what matters most. Although it's been said that poetry makes nothing happen, poetry dissolves boundaries. It's the finite that puts us in touch with the infinite. And as languages and species vanish every day, it's a crucial vehicle by which we apprehend the urgency and precarious splendor of existence. It's a crucial vehicle by which we apprehend the urgency and precarious splendor of existence. The shapes of leaves. Gingko, cottonwood, pin oak, sweet gum, tulip tree. Our emotions resemble leaves, and alive to their shapes, we are nourished. Have you felt the expanse and contours of grief along the edges of a big Norway maple? Have you winced at the orange flare searing the curves of a curling dogwood? I have seen from the air logged islands, each with a network of branching gravel roads, and felt a moment of pure anger, aspen gold. I have seen sandhill cranes moving in an open field, a single white whooping crane in the flock. And I have traveled along the contours of leaves that have no name, here where the air is wet and the light is cool. I feel what others are thinking and do not speak. I know pleasure in the veins of a sugar maple. I am living at the edge of a new leaf.